Modern, orderly, ruled by banks and engineering giants, a company appears like a tech mirage, slick branding, confident founders, and promises to make payments invisible and instant across the globe. Wirecard rose from a tiny German payments firm into the crown jewel of Fintech in Europe, a company seemingly built on software, innovation, and relentless growth. It boasted partnerships with banks trusted it, regulators praised it, and investors paid handsomely, a valuation that touched $24 billion. Then, like a magician's final trick revealed, the numbers didn't add up. Cash that should exist vanished. Auditors raised red flags. Journalists probed, and within months the company imploded. This is the story of Wirecard, of fraud, blind trust, and a system that failed to stop a giant lie. What happens when an entire financial ecosystem chooses to believe the story instead of checking the balance? Wirecard's roots go back to the late 1990s, during the dot-com era. Originally a small player in electronic payments in Germany, Wirecard pivoted and reinvented itself repeatedly. Under the leadership of a dynamic CEO, Markus Braun, and the guidance of a charismatic CFO, John Marszalek, later a central figure in controversy, Wirecard evolved from a B2B payments processor to a publicly traded fintech darling. Key moves fueled the rise: aggressive acquisitions across Europe and Asia to build global processing capacity, positioning as the bridge between e-commerce merchants and banks, promising speed, scale, and compliance. A narrative of German technological excellence married to startup speed. Institutional investors poured money in, attracted by high-growth metrics and rosy forecasts. Wirecard moved fast. Offices opened worldwide. Partnerships were announced, and press releases painted a picture of unstoppable expansion. Success is a story told many times until it becomes reality. But what if the story was written before the facts? Wirecard didn't just sell payment services, it sold trust. The company cultivated relationships with politicians, regulators, and banks. It lobbied hard in Germany and beyond, positioning itself as a national champion for fintech. Public relations was surgical. Interviews in elite German media, endorsements from political figures and officials, sponsorships and brand visibility, stadium naming rights, glossy events. That image shielded the company. Questions were treated as misunderstandings or FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt. Analysts who probed too hard found themselves publicly discredited. Journalists faced legal threats and aggressive rebuttals. Wirecard became not only a corporate success story, but a symbol of modern German tech pride. When power and prestige combine, skepticism is often treated as disloyalty. A crucial piece of Wirecard's puzzle was its Asia business. The company claimed high margins and revenues from operations in places like the Philippines, Dubai, and Singapore. But the structure was complex: a network of third-party acquirers, local firms that processed transactions on Wirecard's behalf in markets where Wirecard had no direct license. These third-party arrangements were unusual but not illegal per se. They allowed rapid revenue recognition and expansion without the regulatory burden of full local licensing. To investors, the numbers looked clean: double-digit growth from emerging markets. To skeptics, the setup looked like a black box. Wirecard's reported cash balances also began to include large sums supposedly held in trustee accounts at partner banks in the Philippines. These sums were critical to justify the company's balance sheet and valuation. Opaque structures don't always hide wrongdoing, but they certainly make a lie easier to live in. Journalism began chipping at Wirecard's armor. Independent investigators and newsrooms, most prominently Germany's Financial Times, started publishing pieces raising questions. Are the Asian revenues real? Where exactly is the cash? Why are auditors having trouble confirming balances? Wirecard's response was aggressive: threats of legal action, PR counters, and denouncements of the reporting as malicious. Regulators argued they were monitoring the company and saw nothing conclusive. The company produced statements and presentations that used selective data to reassure investors. But the whispers grew louder, and the public record still showed very high cash balances in correspondent accounts. No external auditor had full access to confirm certain accounts in remote regions. The groundwork for disaster was being laid. When journalists see smoke, they start looking for fire, but a well-built facade can still distract the crowd. The crisis reached a head in 2019 to 2020. Wirecard's auditor, EY, Ernst & Young, demanded confirmation of cash balances that Wirecard claimed existed in trustees' accounts in the Philippines. After protracted delays and evasions, EY concluded they could not verify $1.9 billion cash Wirecard claimed was held at partner banks. When EY publicly stated that they could not confirm the balance, the markets reacted violently. Wirecard's share price collapsed. Key executives were arrested or resigned. The supposedly invincible Fintech turned into a dumpster fire. Subsequent investigations revealed that much of the purported revenues from Asia had been fabricated or inflated through fake transactions, and in some cases, forged documents. Several partners named in Wirecard's reports denied holding the balances. The 1.9 billion hole became the focal point of the collapse. An empire of paper falls the moment the ledger is opened and a number fails to appear. In June 2020, Wirecard filed for insolvency after its auditor refused to sign off on the accounts, and the company acknowledged the missing funds. The CEO, Marcus Braun, was arrested. John Marsalek fled. His fate later became one of the era's great mysteries as he disappeared across borders. The fallout was enormous. Investors lost billions. Banks and customers were harmed. German regulators faced intense criticism for failing to detect or act sooner. Political consequences rippled through Berlin's corridors, as Wirecard had been seen as a national success story. Legal investigations spanned countries: Germany, the UK, the Philippines, Singapore, and others. The scandal triggered questions about oversight, auditing standards, and the cozy relationships between corporations and regulators. When a company is untouchable in public life, its failure becomes a scandal for an entire system. The Wirecard saga isn't just numbers, it's personalities and institutions. Marcus Braun, the CEO who promised transformational Fintech, later accused of orchestrating or being willfully blind to the deception. Jan Marsalek, COO, central to the Asia operations. After the collapse, he vanished. Reports later suggested a network of contacts, geopolitical intrigue, and questions about intelligence ties. EY, Ernst & Young, the auditor, who eventually refused to sign off, but was criticized for years of inadequate scrutiny. BaFin, German financial regulator, accused of complacency and even at times targeting journalists and short sellers, rather than probing the company. Investigative journalists, e.g. Financial Times, whose reporting helped expose the holes, and who were attacked legally and publicly for their work. Scandals are never a single person's fault. They are a failure of hearts, minds, institutions, and incentives. Trials and investigations stretched over years. Courts, prosecutors, compensation claims, and shattered trust marked the aftermath. Wirecard's collapse revealed deep flaws in financial regulation and auditing in Europe. Reliance on auditors who may lack teeth against aggressive management. Regulatory capture or timidity in confronting well-connected firms. The danger of hero narratives, national champions that escape scrutiny. The episode also highlighted the crucial role of investigative journalism and whistleblowers in checking corporate power. It sparked calls for auditing reform, stronger cross-border oversight of payment networks, and stricter governance standards for fintech companies. The book closes on the company, but its footnotes rewrite how the industry must operate. Due diligence trumps PR. A shiny pitch deck and politician endorsements cannot replace bank confirmations and on-the-ground checks. Auditors must be independent and skeptical. Cozy relationships and mechanical sign-offs invite catastrophe. Regulators need courage and curiosity. Acting early may be politically risky, but it prevents systemic damage. Complex structures. Hide risk. Third-party acquirers and opaque revenue channels need extra scrutiny. Journalism matters. Persistent, investigative reporting can pierce defensive narratives. Beware the cult of growth. When growth at all costs becomes the only KPI, the accounting becomes creative. Trust is earned daily and can be erased by a single undisclosed transfer. Wirecard became a modern parable. How tens of billions can evaporate when appearance trumps audit and momentum outpaces oversight. So we ask, and we leave the audience with this unresolved question. In a world racing to digitize money and payments, how many more empires are being built on numbers that no one dares to verify? Want more unfiltered business stories? Subscribe to Boardroom Biz and get front row access to the boardroom battles and billion-dollar decisions that move markets.